we discussed ways in which the European Union can further support the full implementation of the Minsk agreements. We always refer to the absolute need for parties to fully implement the agreement that we consider as the key reference and the key way of solving the conflict. We see in these hours in the east of Ukraine a ceasefire that is holding, and we hope that this can constitute a good basis not only for the restart of the school year, but also for a continuation of the situation in this respect. We heard from the French and the German foreign ministers, to which I'm very grateful, also an assessment on the state of play of the Minsk implementation. We discussed together ways in which the European Union can support further in a more visible but also constant way both the Normandy format and the different work that is done, especially in the framework of the OSCE. We agreed generally, all sides, that Minsk and the Normandy format constitute a framework to deal with the crisis in eastern Ukraine, and that obviously we are not content with the present state of implementation of the accords, but we all agreed on the fact that these accords have helped to diffuse a very hot conflict in the past, and that constitutes the basis that we all support actively for the future. So full support to the Normandy format, full support to the Minsk implementation. As I told you this morning, we discussed concrete ideas on how the European Union can do more in this respect. In particular, providing support to holding of local elections in certain areas of the Donetsk and Lugansk regions, once the preconditions established by the OSCE ODIHR are met, giving some attention in particular to the intended OSCE police mission. We also discussed the possibility of enhancing our support to the OSCE special monitoring mission, that we are already doing, but we can do more. We also explored possibilities for increasing our support on the ground, short term, with actions that could include financial or technical support to activities to improve the living conditions of the population, especially in the energy sector. Today, Vice President Šefčovič was exactly in Kiev discussing the energy cooperation. You know that the European Union facilitates also the trilateral energy talks with Russia and Ukraine. This is a field where we can do definitely more. But also, we discussed the possibility for the European Union to play a leading role in the reconstruction of the country, and in particular certain regions, after the full implementation of Minsk is reached. Obviously, we have also explored possibilities to have more economic projects and more humanitarian projects, so to help in the immediate. We know very well that this kind of activities, including some technical support to activities like the mining or supporting local governance, are key because they can constitute a basis for hope for the local populations, and so encouraging the confidence building measures. So what I can pass tonight is definitely the full determined support to the Normandy format, to the full Minsk implementation, and an increased engagement by the European Union as such in support of the ongoing formats and in support of the Minsk agreements. Obviously, this is something I don't mention. This is an ongoing effort. We will continue to talk about this publicly and privately, both with our Ukrainian friends and the Russian counterparts as the European Union and member states.
Just be clear on these concrete measures to help with Minsk. Do any of them propose any EU boots on the ground to secure, in any form, to secure the local elections in the east of Ukraine? Or will that continue to be entirely done by the OSCE and ODIHR? And secondly, and following on from that, are you or are any of the ministers that you've been talking to today prepared in the name of advancing Minsk, advancing the peace talks, to accept local elections in Donbass that are not fully free and fully fair?
We talked about possibility for the European Union, as I said, to support substantially and actively the holding of local elections in connection with the work done by OSCE ODIHR. So the direct answer to your direct question, boots on the ground from the European Union, no, definitely not. We will give attention to the intention of the OSCE to establish a police mission. This is possible. And we will obviously now enter into talks with the OSCE, with whom, by the way, we were yesterday in Berlin, on ways in which we can increase the level of contribution or cooperation between the European Union and the OSCE on how we can help in this respect. But I would like you to focus not only on that, which is very important, but also on the fact that we decided to focus our continued support also on what can happen after the implementation of the Minsk agreement is realized, because we know very well that this falls exactly in the added value of the European Union tools when it comes to economy, when it comes to reconstruction, when it comes to humanitarian, when it comes to interconnections, when it comes to energy, transport. This is all fields where the European Union can bring a lot, and only the European Union can bring a lot. Our support to Ukraine, as you know, is already immense. It will continue, and we can probably use it in a, let's say, more visible way to encourage political talks. And when it comes to the conditions under which local elections have to be held, we stick to the standards established by OSCE ODIHR. The reason why we had this discussion on the Minsk implementation today with the foreign ministers is exactly to provide to the heads of state and government in October a basis on the assessment of the Minsk implementation, the assessment of the political process, of the security process. The relevance of having different formations of the Council is that we can actually prepare the discussion of our prime ministers and head of states with a sectorial approach. So for me, it was very important to make sure that the foreign ministers had this opportunity to fit in the decision that then the heads of state and government will need to make in October on the sanctions. Not only talking only about the sanctions, but talking of what the sanctions are connected to, which is the situation on the ground and our work to solve the conflict in Ukraine. Because at the end of the day, the issue is not the sanctions itself, the issue is the solution of the conflict, and we always have to keep that in mind.